The city of Valon 9 was quiet that morning. Too quiet. The sky above was covered in metal clouds, huge ships floating like shadows. The people below walked fast, heads down, afraid to make eye contact. The sound of marching soldiers echoed in the cold air. The alien council had called for a public announcement. Everyone gathered in the main square. Humans stood in one corner, separate from the other races, tired, thin, and silent. They had learned that silence meant survival. Then the voice came. It was deep, mechanical, and cold. By the order of the Galactic Council, the speaker announced, all orphan children are to be sold to labor colonies by the end of this week. Gasps filled the square. Mothers covered their children. Men clenched their fists. But no one spoke. No one dared. Disobedience meant death. Standing among the crowd was Elias, a human single father. His clothes were simple, worn from long work hours in the scrap mines. But his eyes, they were alive. Strong, fierce. Beside him stood Lyra, a small girl with bright brown eyes and tangled hair. She was not his blood daughter. He had found her 3 years ago, crying in the ruins of a destroyed camp. He had taken her in, cared for her, loved her as his own. When the order was announced, Lyra looked up at him, confused. "Papa, what does it mean?" she asked softly. Elias's throat tightened. He couldn't speak. He knew exactly what it meant. The council wanted to sell human orphans as slaves. They called it resource redistribution, but everyone knew what it really was, the end of hope. The speaker continued, "Those who disobey will be punished. Resistance will not be tolerated." The alien soldiers started handing out lists, names of children to be taken first. Elias's hands shook when one soldier stopped in front of him. The alien's silver skin shimmered under the red light of the ships. He looked at Elias with disgust. "Name?" "Elias Rowan," he replied quietly. The soldier scanned his wrist chip and then smirked. "Lyra Rowan, age 7. Registered orphan. She will be taken tomorrow." Elias felt his chest tighten. His ears rang. Time slowed. Tomorrow. They would take her tomorrow. Lyra gripped his hand, scared. "Papa, are they taking me away?" He forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed him. "No, little one," he whispered. "No one will take you. Not while I live." The alien gave a small laugh. "Careful, human. Words like that can get you killed." Then he walked away, leaving the list in Elias's hand. The crowd began to break apart. Some cried quietly. Others looked at Elias with pity, but no one came near. No one helped. That night, Elias sat by the small fire in their broken home. He couldn't sleep. Lyra was sleeping beside him, her small hand still holding his. The words from the announcement kept echoing in his head. The orphans must be sold. He stared at the chains on his wrists. Every human wore them. It was the law. A mark of obedience. The metal was cold and heavy. He had worn them for years. But now they felt unbearable. He thought of his wife, long gone, taken during the first purge. He thought of the humans who had given up, who said fighting was useless. But then he looked at Lyra, breathing softly beside him, and something inside him changed. "They can take everything," he whispered to himself. "But not her. Not my daughter." Outside, the night was silent, except for the sound of marching boots. The soldiers were getting closer. They were collecting the first orphans. Elias stood, his heart pounding. He could hear their footsteps stop near his door. He moved Lyra behind him and whispered, "Stay quiet, my little star. Don't move, no matter what happens." A heavy knock shook the metal door. Bang, bang, bang. "Open up!" Galactic order. "Bring the child." Elias didn't answer. His eyes went to the chains on his wrists again. His hands trembled, not from fear but from fury. The years of silence, the years of being powerless, all came crashing down. He took a deep breath. His eyes burned like fire. The knocking grew louder. "Final warning. Open the door or face execution." Elias looked down at his hands, clenched them tight, and with a sharp pull the chains snapped. The sound was like thunder in the small room. The metal shattered against the floor. He stood tall for the first time in years. The fear in his heart turned to steel. He whispered to himself, "They may have the laws, but I have something stronger." Outside, the door burst open, and the light of alien weapons filled the room. The battle for humanity had begun. The door burst open with a crash. Dust filled the air as the alien soldiers stepped inside, their armor glowing blue in the darkness. The tallest one pointed his weapon straight at Elias. "By order of the council," the alien said, his voice sharp like metal. "You will surrender the child." Elias stood still. His broken chains lay at his feet. The room was small, but silence made it feel even smaller. Lyra hid behind a metal crate, her small hands over her mouth. "You cannot take her," Elias said softly. The alien commander tilted his head. "You humans never learn. She is property of the Empire now." He raised his weapon, ready to fire a warning shot. But before he could, Elias moved. It was fast, unnatural for a human. He grabbed a broken metal pipe from the ground and slammed it into the alien's arm. Sparks flew. The weapon fell. For a second, the whole world froze. Then chaos. The other soldiers rushed in, shouting in their strange language. One swung at Elias, another fired, but the shot missed and burned through the wall. Lyra screamed. Elias ducked under the blast, rolled forward, and kicked the alien's leg out from under him. Years of hard labor in the mines had made him strong, stronger than they expected. He picked up the fallen weapon. His hands shook not from fear but from rage. "You will not take my daughter." The blast from the weapon threw one alien back through the doorway. The others stepped back, surprised. Humans weren't supposed to fight. Humans were supposed to obey. The commander looked at him, stunned. "You'll die for this, human." Elias breathed hard, eyes wild. "Then I'll die standing." He fired again. The energy beam hit the ceiling and the power lights flickered. The aliens backed off, regrouping outside the door. Elias turned, grabbed Lyra, and ran to the back of the room. There was an old maintenance hatch, small, rusted, almost forgotten. He ripped it open with bare hands, pushed Lyra inside, and whispered, "Crawl until you see light. Don't look back." Tears ran down her cheeks. "Papa, come with me." He smiled, a tired, broken, but full of love. "I'll be right behind you, little star. Now go." She disappeared into the tunnel. He turned back just as the soldiers stormed in again. Elias blocked the first strike with his arm and shoved the alien into a wall. But there were too many. They surrounded him. The commander stepped forward again, furious. "You think this changes anything? You think one man can stop an empire?" Elias stared at him, breathing heavy. "No, but one man can begin it." Then he pressed the weapon to a power core on the wall and pulled the trigger. The explosion threw everyone backward. Fire and smoke filled the house. Elias was hurled into the street. Pain burned through his body, but he didn't stop moving. He looked down the dark alley where the tunnel exit glowed faintly in the distance. Lyra had made it. He smiled through blood and dust. "Run, little star." Run behind him, alarms began to scream. The explosion had drawn attention. Ships hovered above, searchlights sweeping through the district. Loudspeakers shouted warnings. "Human attack. Human resistance detected." Elias stumbled into the shadows, his body aching. Every step hurt, but he kept going. The fire from his home lit up the night behind him. He reached a narrow bridge that led out of the human sector. Below, rivers of molten waste glowed red. The heat hit his face. On the other side, freedom, but the commander followed. His armor was cracked, one arm burnt, yet his eyes burned with hate. "You cannot escape, human. You will crawl before us once more." Elias turned, limping, holding the weapon tight. "I crawled enough for one lifetime." They charged at the same time. The bridge trembled. Sparks flew as metal hit metal. The alien's blade cut Elias's arm, but he pushed through the pain, slammed his fist into the commander's chest plate, and fired the weapon point blank. The alien fell into the molten river below, screaming as the heat swallowed him. Elias dropped to his knees, gasping. He looked at the tunnel exit one more time. Lyra was safe. That was all that mattered. Then he heard sirens. Louder, closer. Drones filled the sky. He whispered to himself, "They will come for me." "Let them. I won't run. Not anymore." He stood up straight, face covered in ash, eyes shining like fire. The broken chain still hung from his wrists, a reminder of what he had been. But now he was something else. He was free. As the alien ships closed in, he raised the weapon toward the sky. The human rebellion had just begun, and every camera in the city saw it. Smoke covered the night sky of Valon 9. Flames rose from the broken homes in the human district, painting the air in red and gold. Sirens echoed through the city as the alien patrols spread out, searching for the man who had dared to fight back. Elias Rowan, the human who broke his chains. Down below the burning streets, in the dark tunnels beneath the city, a small light flickered. Lyra crawled through the narrow passage, dirt covering her face and hands. The tunnel smelled of rust and oil. Her heart pounded with fear, but her father's words kept ringing in her ears. "Crawl until you see the light, little star." She kept moving, her breath shaky. Then she saw it, a faint glow ahead. A way out. When she finally pushed through the end of the tunnel, she fell into a large underground chamber. Broken machines and rusted pipes filled the space. A few people were there, humans old and tired, hiding from the world above. An old woman rushed to help her. "Child, where did you come from?" Lyra gasped for breath. "They took my papa." The soldiers came. "He told me to run." The old woman looked at her with sadness. "You came from the upper city?" Lyra nodded. The woman froze. Everyone around her stared. No one from above ever came back alive. Before they could ask more, the sound of footsteps echoed in the distance. Someone was running down the tunnel, fast, heavy steps. The humans grabbed their tools, ready to defend themselves. Then a voice shouted, hoarse but familiar, "Lyra!" Lyra turned and cried out, "Papa!" Elias stumbled into the chamber, covered in burns and ash. His arm was bleeding, his clothes torn, but his eyes were still sharp, alive. He fell to his knees beside her, hugging her tight. "You're safe. You did good, my little star." The other humans watched in silence. No one had seen such courage in years. One man whispered, "He fought the soldiers." "And survived?" Elias looked up. "We don't have much time. They're hunting me." The group's leader, a tall man with gray hair named Ral, stepped forward. "If you're being hunted, you can't stay here. You'll bring the patrols to us." Elias stood, his tone firm. "Then help me move the children. They're taking orphans, every one of them." "We can't let that happen." Ral shook his head. "We can't fight them. We barely survive down here." Elias stared at him. "You survive, yes. But do you live? You let them take your families, your homes, your freedom. Is that living?" The chamber went silent. Even the air felt heavy. Elias's voice grew stronger, rising like a flame. "I'm not asking you to die for me. I'm asking you to live for them, the children who still believe we can be more than slaves." His words hit them like thunder. The humans looked at one another. Some lowered their eyes in shame. Others clenched their fists. Then Ral finally spoke. "If what you say is true, if the council is taking the children, then maybe it's time we stop hiding." Elias nodded. "Then let's start now." That night they moved through the tunnels quietly. Dozens of humans, men, women, and children, there followed Elias. They carried bags of stolen food, old weapons, and broken equipment. Above them, the alien patrols searched every street, unaware that the humans were already disappearing below their feet. Elias led the way, his daughter holding his hand. "Papa," Lyra whispered, "where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," he said. "Somewhere they can't find us." The tunnels opened into an old railway shaft, one that once connected the mining colonies before the war. Elias climbed up onto an old transport car and looked around. "We'll ride this out of the city," he said. "If it still works." He pressed a few buttons on the control panel. Sparks flew, and for a moment it seemed dead. Then the machine hummed weakly to life. The humans cheered quietly, hope flickering for the first time in years. The train began to move, slowly at first, then faster. The tunnel shook as the transport rumbled into the darkness. For the first time, Elias saw smiles on human faces. For the first time, the children laughed. But as they sped away, far behind them, the alien council watched from their command tower. Screens showed footage from surveillance drones. Elias's face burned into every feed. The High Consul's voice echoed in the chamber. "Find the human. Bring him alive. His rebellion ends tonight." Back on the moving transport, Elias stared into the darkness ahead. He knew this peace wouldn't last. "They'll come for us," Ral said quietly. Elias nodded. "Then let them. They'll learn what happens when humans stop bowing." Lyra leaned against him, tired but smiling. "We're really free now, right?" He looked down at her, brushed the dirt from her cheek, and said softly, "Not yet, but soon." The old transport thundered through the tunnel, carrying not just people but the spark of a new beginning. Above them, the stars of Velon 9 burned brighter, as if watching humanity rise once more. The transport rumbled through the endless dark tunnels for hours. Metal wheels screeched against the rails as the group of humans sat close together, tired but alive. The air smelled of oil and hope, something they had almost forgotten. Elias sat near the front, his arm wrapped in cloth, the wound still bleeding slowly. Lyra slept against his shoulder, clutching his old chain like a toy. Ral sat across from him, sharpening a broken blade. His eyes were full of questions. "You really think we can fight them?" he finally asked. Elias didn't answer right away. He stared ahead, watching the tunnel lights flicker past like falling stars. "I don't know," he said quietly. "But I know we can't keep running. If we hide forever, they win." Ral gave a dry laugh. "Fight the council with what?" "Rusted tools and hope." Elias looked up, his gaze steady. "Hope is the only weapon they can't take." The train shook as it turned into an old station. The group jumped out, dragging their few supplies behind them. The underground base was cold and abandoned, a forgotten place from before the wars. They worked through the night, lighting old lamps and searching through the ruins. They found food packs, first aid kits, and broken communication panels. For the first time, humans began to build something again. Lyra helped the younger children, smiling as they cleaned a corner of the station. She hummed softly, a sound that reminded everyone what they were fighting for. By morning, word began to spread. Rumors carried through the tunnels, whispers of a man who had broken his chains, a father who defied the council. Other groups of humans started coming. Small groups at first, miners, scavengers, old soldiers. They brought tools, scraps, and stories. One woman named Juno stepped forward, her eyes fierce. "I saw what you did," she said to Elias. "They call you the Chainbreaker. They're terrified." Elias frowned. "Terrified of one man?" Juno smiled. "No, terrified of what one man started. That night more people joined. Dozens, then hundreds. They turned the abandoned tunnels into a camp, a place of purpose. They called themselves the Chainbreakers. They didn't have ships or armies or technology, but they had something stronger: unity." Elias stood before them one night, the flicker of firelight dancing on his face. He spoke with calm but heavy words. "They think we're animals. They think we'll obey forever, but humans don't kneel, not forever. We fight, we fall, we rise again." The crowd grew silent, every pair of eyes fixed on him. "They sell our children, break our homes, and call it order. But we remember who we are. We are not slaves. We are humanity." The humans cheered. The sound of hope echoed through the metal tunnels like thunder. The next morning, Elias and a small team planned their first strike. Juno spread out a holographic map of the district. "There's a slave transport leaving tomorrow," she said. "It's carrying over 50 orphaned children to the outer colonies." Elias clenched his jaw. "Then that's where we start." They prepared all night. They built makeshift weapons, hacked old drones, and studied the alien patrol patterns. The air buzzed with tension and purpose. When dawn came, the Chainbreakers moved through the tunnels like shadows. The transport station above was surrounded by guards. Alien soldiers scanned every corner, unaware of what hid beneath their feet. Elias crawled through a vent, breathing slow. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. He looked at Juno beside him and whispered, "Remember, we fight for them, not revenge." She nodded. "Understood." Then it began. An explosion rocked the far side of the station. A decoy. The aliens turned toward the noise. Elias and his team rose from the shadows, attacking the guards from behind. Blades flashed. Energy blasts tore through the air. Humans moved with silent fury. Desperate, focused, unbroken. Elias reached the transport cage and smashed the control panel. The metal door slid open, revealing rows of frightened children. He held out his hand. "You're safe now. Come with us." The children hesitated, then ran into the tunnels, guided by the Chainbreakers. More explosions shook the ground as the alarm screamed. The aliens regrouped, firing wildly. Elias covered the last group of children, shielding them as blasts tore through the air. He turned and saw the enemy commander, a new one, standing above the flames. "You can't save them all," the alien shouted. Elias shouted back, "I don't need to save them all. Just enough to remind the galaxy who we are." He threw a charge onto the transport engine and ran. The explosion that followed lit up the entire district. Hours later, the humans returned to their base. The freed children slept peacefully for the first time in years. Elias sat near the fire, silent. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from exhaustion and pride. Juno sat beside him. "We did it," she whispered. He nodded slowly. "We started it." Above them, the night sky shimmered through cracks in the surface. The smoke cleared, and the first light of dawn touched the ruins of Velan 9. In that faint light, humanity had found something it had lost long ago: hope. The underground base buzzed with new life. After their first victory, hope spread like fire through the tunnels of Velan 9. Humans smiled again. Children laughed, and for the first time in years they believed tomorrow could be different. The Chainbreakers were no longer just survivors. They were a movement. They trained, they built, they dreamed. Elias watched from a distance as Lyra played with other freed children. Her laughter echoed softly through the station. He smiled faintly. For a moment, he almost forgot the pain, the blood, the war above. But deep down, he knew peace never lasted long. Not here. That evening, a meeting was held around the fire pit in the old station. Ral, Juno, and a few new members joined Elias to plan their next mission. "The next transport leaves in 2 days," Juno said, tapping a map made from scrap metal and laser lines. "If we hit them again, we can free another group of children. But we'll need more weapons," Elias nodded. "There's a supply depot near the East Ridge. We'll raid it tomorrow night," Ralph frowned. "That depot is heavily guarded. If we fail, the Council will find this base." Elias looked at him calmly. "If we stop now, we fail already." The group agreed in silence. Everyone knew the risk. Everyone was willing to take it, but not everyone shared their courage. In the shadows, a man named Kor watched. He had joined the Chainbreakers only a week ago. Quiet, helpful, always listening. But his eyes carried fear more than hope. That night, as the camp slept, Kor slipped away. He walked through a secret tunnel that led to an old comm station, one still connected to the alien network. He turned it on, trembling as a cold blue light filled the room. A hologram appeared, an alien officer with sharp, pale eyes. "You have information?" the alien asked. Kor nodded, his voice shaking. "They're in the old transit tunnels. Dozens of them. If you spare me, I'll show you where." The alien smiled thinly. "You have served well, human. The Council rewards loyalty." He cut the connection. Kor lowered his head, tears filling his eyes. He told himself he did it to survive. But deep down, he knew he had just doomed them all. The next night, the Chainbreakers prepared for the raid. Elias stood at the front of the group wearing a cracked chest plate and holding a stolen alien blaster. Lyra hugged him tightly before he left. "Come back soon, Papa." "Always," he whispered, brushing her hair gently. "I'll always come back." They moved through the tunnels silently, unaware that above them, ships were descending, guided by Kor's signal. When the group reached the supply depot, everything seemed too quiet. No guards, no patrols, no drones. Juno frowned. "Something's wrong." Elias raised his hand, signaling everyone to stop. "Stay low." He moved forward slowly, scanning the shadows. Then, out of nowhere, blinding lights exploded across the area. "Ambush!" Juno shouted. Energy blasts tore through the air. Dozens of alien soldiers surrounded them from all sides. The Chainbreakers fired back, but they were outnumbered 10-1. Elias ducked behind a wall, firing rapidly. "Fall back! Get to the tunnels!" But before they could retreat, the entrance collapsed, sealed by an explosion. They were trapped. Juno was hit in the shoulder, falling beside him. They knew Elias. Someone told them. Elias clenched his teeth, rage flooding through him. "Then we find out who." He grabbed Juno and dragged her behind cover. The air filled with smoke and screams. The humans fought bravely, but one by one they fell. Then above the chaos, Elias saw him, Kor. Hiding behind a transport, eyes wide with guilt. Holding a communicator still glowing blue, their eyes met. Kor froze. Elias stepped forward, fury and heartbreak burning in his stare. "You," he said softly. "You did this," Kor's lips trembled. I just wanted to live." Elias's voice shook, not with anger but pain. "And now you've killed the only people who still believed in living." Before Kor could answer, a blast struck nearby. The shockwave threw him into the dirt. Elias turned away, grabbing Juno and the few survivors left. They fought through the flames, escaping through a maintenance shaft barely big enough to crawl through. Behind them, the depot burned. Hours later, they returned to their base, or what was left of it. The tunnels were in ruins. The fire still smoked. Bodies lay scattered. The alien soldiers had come and gone, leaving only destruction. Elias stumbled through the wreckage, calling out for his daughter.
Lyra, Lyra, where are you?
No answer, only silence. He ran to their small sleeping area. The blanket was gone, so was Lyra. A small pendant, her favorite made from scrap metal, lay on the ground. He picked it up slowly, his hand shaking. Juno approached, limping. Her voice was soft, broken. They took her, Elias, they took the children. He stared at the pendant, eyes empty, then burning with fire. His voice was barely a whisper. Then I'll take her back. He looked at the others, those who still lived. Their faces were pale, tired, hopeless. But when they saw his eyes, they straightened. Because Elias wasn't just a man anymore. He was a storm. A father with nothing left to lose. The rebellion had been broken that night. But in its ashes, something stronger was born. Vengeance. And the galaxy was about to learn what happens when a human stops hoping. And starts hunting. Days turned into nights. The tunnels of Velon 9 were quiet again, too quiet. Smoke still hung in the air, the scent of ash and sorrow never fading. The rebellion lay shattered. Most of the chainbreakers were dead, captured or scattered across the ruins. But one man still walked. Elias Rowan. He moved through the wrecked tunnels like a ghost, silent, cold, and unyielding. His arm was bandaged, his face marked with soot and blood, but his eyes still burned with the same fire that once defied the council. He carried only two things now: a stolen alien rifle and Lyra's small pendant. Every step echoed his promise. I'll take her back. Above ground, the alien fortress stood like a mountain of metal and light. It was said no human had ever entered it alive. Inside, the council stored their slaves, the orphans, the broken, the forgotten. That was where Lyra was, and that was where Elias was going. At dawn, he climbed out of the tunnels and saw the fortress on the horizon. Ships floated in the air like vultures, scanning the ground for rebels. Patrols moved in perfect rhythm, unaware of what was coming for them. Elias crouched behind a ridge and whispered to himself, "You took everything from me. Now I'll take everything from you." He moved like a shadow, striking patrol after patrol. His aim was cold and steady, each shot silent, clean, precise. He used their own weapons against them, leaving trails of fallen guards behind. For the first time in history, the aliens were afraid, not of an army, but of one human. As night fell, he reached the outer walls. Huge energy shields glowed blue around the fortress. No human tech could break through it, but Elias had a plan. He connected two stolen power cells, strapped them to the base of the shield generator, and whispered, "For my daughter." The explosion split the night in half. The shield flickered, then collapsed. Sirens screamed across the city. Elias didn't stop. He charged into the fortress, smoke and fire behind him. Inside, alarms blared. Soldiers flooded the halls, but he fought through them like a storm. Every strike was desperate, every move filled with purpose. He was no soldier. He was a father, and a father fighting for his child fears nothing. He reached the holding cells and rows of cages filled with frightened children. When they saw him, whispers spread through the room. "It's him, the chainbreaker." Elias shot the locks open one by one. "Run to the tunnels," he ordered. "Follow the lights and don't look back." The children obeyed, tears of relief streaming down their faces. But Lyra wasn't among them. Then a voice echoed from the corridor ahead, calm, cold, and inhuman. "You made it further than I expected, human." Elias turned. From the shadows stepped the High Consul, the alien leader of Velon 9. His armor glowed silver, his eyes bright and cruel. "You could have lived quietly," the consul said. "Now you will die for nothing." Elias lifted his weapon. "I didn't come here to live," the consul smiled. "And your child? She is safe for now. Tell me, was it worth it? Got all this pain for one small human?" Elias's voice was steady. "For her? Always." They clashed. The alien strength was monstrous, but Elias fought with everything left in him. Rage, grief, love. He dodged strikes, fired, reloaded, swung the rifle like a blade. Sparks and blood painted the floor. The consul slammed him against a wall, pinning him down. "You are weak," he hissed. Elias grabbed the alien's wrist and forced his arm into the power conduit behind him. Electricity surged through them both. The room filled with blinding light. The consul screamed as and fell. Elias dropped to his knees, gasping, half-conscious. His vision blurred, but he forced himself up. He stumbled through the corridor and found another room, smaller, quieter. Inside, behind a glass door, was Lyra. Her eyes widened. "Papa!" He smashed the lock and pulled her into his arms. She cried, holding on to him tightly. "I knew you'd come. Always," he whispered. But outside, more ships were arriving. The fortress was collapsing. Elias carried Lyra toward an escape pod bay. He placed her inside one of the pods and set the coordinates for a safe world, far from Velon 9. "You have to go, Lyra." "No. Come with me." He smiled softly. "Not this time. Someone has to hold them off." Tears filled her eyes. "I love you, Papa. And I love you, my little star, always." He pressed the button. The pod launched into the sky, disappearing into the stars. Elias turned, breathing hard. The fortress shook. The consul's army poured in. He grabbed one last power core, and the same type that fueled their ships, and whispered to himself, "For humanity." Then he fired. The explosion was seen from orbit. When dawn rose over Velon 9, the fortress was gone. The city was silent. The chains were broken, and across the galaxy, whispers began again. Stories of the human father who defied an empire, who fought alone, and who reminded the stars why humans were never to be underestimated. They called him a legend. They called him the Chainbreaker. But to one small girl flying through the stars, he would always be just one thing: Papa.